like to call to order the meeting of the Western Riverside Council of Governments Executive Committee. At this time, please select yes on your screen if you're here to indicate your presence. Not happening.
Send someone, it's like summer. She's like this.
Waiting on District 5. Is he District 5 here?
He was here, he's just not in his seat at the moment.
Okay, with that, we have 20 here and no, and we have a quorum. Thank you. Will you please rise, and we'll have the City of Paris lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we go on to item 3, public comments. I see we have somebody for public comment from SCAG, Arnold San Miguel.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. So just wanted to bring to your attention that we are having our annual Southern California Economic Summit and at the December in Los Angeles. That's free to all elected officials, so I would encourage you to come out and attend. And I just wanted to let you know, and I see that my board member is in the audience. He sits on the Regional Housing Assessment Subcommittee, so I don't know if he was going to say anything. I could say a few things or get myself in trouble, or should I? Okay, thanks, sir. Appreciate that. So just so everybody knows, the Regional Housing Needs Assessment Subcommittee met today, and they took an action to send to this Community Economic Human Development Committee on October 21st a methodology for the Regional Housing Needs Assessment. If the CEHD approves that, then it would go to the SCAG Regional Council on November 7th. If it gets approved then, it goes to the State Department of Housing and Community Development for a 60-day review period, and then it would come back to SCAG in January, and we would bring it back up again. Ultimately, the end goal is in October of next year. All that process would be resolved. You would have the numbers. You'd have to prepare a housing element for. You'd have 1 year to do that by October 2021. So that's a quick summary of the timeline, but this process is moving. So we highly recommend that you pay attention to it, and we'll see you at the Economic Summit in December. Thank you.
Thank you. Janice, is there anyone else wishing to speak?
I have no requests.
Thank you. Okay, going on to item number 4, the minutes from September 9th meeting. Does anyone have any comments on the minutes? Hearing none. Janice, would you please set the system up for vote? Approval of the minutes?
City of Riverside, please vote. City of Hemet, please vote.
I still don't have mine up. You did that?
I did that.
I'll
Okay.
have staff look into that.
Okay. And they're approved 21-0 with no abstentions. Okay, we go on to item number 5, consent calendar. Does anyone wish to pull in any item for discussion? Number 6 is District 2.
I actually realized that item J was information item, not consent. Thank you. There will be a presentation, correct?
Yeah, pardon? Yeah, I know, but she mentioned that it's not on the consent calendar. It's
It's under information items.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to pull item J, 5J,
Thank you.
okay? Hearing no other items of concern, we'll go on to approve the remaining consent items, with the exception of 5J. And that is again approved 21-0. Okay, going on to item 5J. Chris?
Good afternoon, members of the committee. I'm Chris Gray, Director of Planning and Transportation. This is as close to a breaking news item you would see on CNN, Fox News, or MSNBC, or the news station of your choice. In your agenda package is a memo from staff which includes a table of the current RENA allocation process. There was a meeting this morning of the RENA subcommittee, as referenced by Arnold. The committee took action to endorse, I believe in an extremely close vote, Mayor Bailey, option 4. And option 4 is a new staff-developed alternative. If you are curious what option 4 means for your jurisdiction, it is in the table that we attached you. And I believe we're going to pull up some slides to show you the numbers. Oh, I need to advance. They were giving me the advance the slide motion. So essentially what happened is SCAG came out with 3 options. Initially, there was option 1, which was a new option that incorporated a number of other factors. Option 2 was a simple proportional share. If your city is 50,000 population, you got a proportional share of new housing units in the region. Option 3 was a basically business as usual, very similar to how it's normally done. SCAG received hundreds of comments, many of which were, we don't like any of your options. So SCAG developed a new option, option 4, which we were told would incorporate factors such as job locations and other access to transit. So last week, after the agenda was released, SCAG released a set of numbers for each of your jurisdictions, which we're providing to you today. You'll see that some of you do very well based on option 4. Others not so much. The way the shading works is we've highlighted the option which gives you the lowest number for your jurisdiction. Option 2 is the best and most favorable for the region as a whole, however, not uniformly so. Councilmember Vash, you have a hard copy of this if you need it. So
I'm going to send it. I'm going to tweet it.
You're welcome to tweet it. Essentially, we're providing this item to you for information, but we do want to make you aware of some upcoming actions, as Arnold has said. There's a meeting of the SCAG CHD committee at the end of August where they're going to consider this item, and then the regional council takes action on November 7th. I just want to call out some of our regional council members so you can make sure that your voice is heard. Supervisor Spiegel, Mayor Bailey. I think that's it for all our regional council members. And we have a number of other regional council members. For example, Clint Lorimore from Eastvale is also a member of the regional council. Mr. Benoit. So we, in our staff report for this item, we list the regional council members, and we would strongly encourage you to talk to all of your regional council members to make sure our voice is heard. WRCOG is going to be meeting with all of the other COG directors next week to talk about if there's any way we can build a coalition to build support for a particular option, which is not horrible for us. And let me just say this. None of these are great. There's just degrees of how bad they are. And so option 4 is bad. Option 3 was really bad. Option 1 was bad. And option 2 was not so bad. So none of these are great. We feel that all of them give us more than our fair share of the regional housing need. So to that end, Madam Chairman, if anyone has any questions, I would also maybe ask if Mayor Bailey may have anything he wants to add now or later.
District 2.
I'll let you talk after me. you know, option 2, obviously, for our jurisdictions, it is the better story. I just thought it was interesting, and I don't know exactly why, but option 4 favors my cities in my district. None of them had a good option in option 2. So, you know, depending on which hat, as the hat for my district, which is who I was representing, option 4 is a much better option. Option 2 for WRCOG is a much better option. So it's a toss-up between the two. So I really would be interested to hear what Mr. Bailey has to say as to the discussions that happened.
Were there any other questions from the staff presentation before?
Well, you guys, Rusty, you guys were the oddballs because you're the only one with option 1.
Where is that?
Well, I actually advocated the last meeting for option 2 because as a representative for the county on RENA, I saw that as what's best for the county, even though, you know, it was a little bit better for Riverside option 1. But going back to today's late breaking news, it was a very interesting vote that I think will come up in the media because it was, once again, I would say inland versus coastal, except for a little bit of a nuance. From San Bernardino County, for some reason, their representative voted against a motion that I made to add a 5th option and compare it with option 4. And I think that's what ultimately they didn't understand what I was asking in the motion. And so at the, who's on the CEHD meeting? Who's going to the, Russell Betts will be there and he's our alternate for the RENA. Is anybody else on CEHD? But at regional council, I'll bring this up again. So bottom line is it was a vote, Riverside County, I think LA was it that jumped in with us, and Imperial County. So the 3 of us voted for looking at another option that was placed on the table by a professor from UCLA. There is a bias there, but he also made points that we agreed with in terms of option 5, looking at more jobs and transit-rich areas, getting more numbers. Isn't that what we're here for? Isn't that what we've been talking about for I don't know how long? And so the 5th option would have looked at that, would have put that in the algorithm. It's a very complex situation, but basically that's what it would have done. It would have skewed the mathematical mechanism, the algorithm, towards where the jobs are, towards where HQTAs are, which happens to be LA and Orange County. And so the numbers you're seeing are going to create more urban sprawl. For instance, Calamasa going from 500 to 4,300, same thing with Beaumont. So we're just going to push more housing, more people to the east, even though the jobs are still projected to be in the west. And so I asked for that. So again, it was Riverside, LA, and Imperial versus Orange County, Ventura, and then this anomaly from San Bernardino County. But Bill Yon is the chair of SCAG right now, and so maybe he's deferring a little bit more to SCAG staff who are presenting these options. And then the tiebreaker was the chair of this committee, this RENA committee, who's from Yorba Linda, who has a whole 207 units over the next 8 years that they have to build in option 4. So that's where we are. It has become, I believe, politicized inside the SCAG region, unfortunately. I was trying to present an option that was more academic and thoughtful and a better option. It's still maybe a little bit higher than not so bad. It's better than not so bad, but it may be good, but we don't know because we haven't done the numbers for option 5. So the saga continues, and it will continue until ultimately next October, I think, 2020, before it's fully adopted. Any questions now?
Any other questions or comments? Pardon? Yeah.
Chris, can I ask a clarification?
Yes.
Are these numbers based on the HCD number of 1.3 million?
Yeah, so there's another dimension to this in that SCAG said their number should be about 800,000. The state came back and said, no, we think it's 1.34 million. SCAG is now appealing that. If HCD agrees with any part of that appeal, that number will come down. We don't know how that will work. It's within their right to say, no, we think it's 1.3 and you do 1.3. So we won't know that for about another, I would say, 30 to 45 days to know how that appeal worked out.
Well, let's hope they go down.
65,000.
This is like ridiculous for us, certainly in Hemet. So, Calamasa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would agree with the Hemet numbers, but I think you look at ridiculous, you see Calamasa's numbers. I don't know how in the world that a staff of our size can ever manage those kind of numbers. So we went from 514, which would be a reasonable number, to 4349. 30-year history of that city, it's never seen that many people come through there. So I know it's a transportation component, and I understand we've got a freeway running right through the middle of our city, but these are frightening numbers. I got to take this back to staff and say, you guys hang on, because we're going to be under a tremendous amount of pressure as one of the smallest communities in the region to try to fight what I consider to be big city numbers. So I had to get my moment of complaint in. Thank you.
You don't have enough time for my complaints, but we'll go to Temecula right now.
Okay, I had a question about Norco. How did they go from 1227 down to 42?
So,
yeah, who are you paying? Because we want to get in on it. So,
just
horse stalls. There you go.
Yeah, just so as Mayor Bailey alluded to, all these methodologies are fairly complex. Each of them considers anywhere between 5 and 20 different factors. It just so happened that in option 3 and option 4, the set of factors SCAG has chosen to use and not use is very favorable to the city of Norco, just like other folks. So for example, the county in particular, if you look at unincorporated Riverside County, you get huge swings, and it just happens to be how the formula, which factors they're using and which factor they're not.
Wow.
District 5.
Yeah, I see one thing in common. All 6 of the cities in my district all go in option 2. And I don't know, I think I pissed somebody off somewhere. I can't imagine how that would happen ever. But, the really sad part of this is, we can sit there and we can, oh my God, wouldn't it be great to have, 4,349 new homes in Calumet? So wouldn't that be great if we did all this? This is what happens when we do master planning. This has nothing to do with how many homes are going to go in. This has zero to do with it. That will be determined by market forces, by sizes, by people wanting to go to an area. All this does is give the state an excuse to come down and find the hell out of each one of these agencies. I am pissed off about this, and I'll tell you what, if it doesn't change right away, it's pitting people like Karen and I against each other because she happens to be down close to where they say, oh, we don't want any more here because we had too much traffic, but nothing's going on out in the pass. But I can tell you out there on Interstate 10 this morning, or just last night on a Sunday afternoon coming home, it's getting almost as bad as the 91. So this is craziness. This is the kind of stuff that has the governor suing the city of Huntington Beach for affordable housing. Give me a break. I think we should scrap these all and we should get rid of SCAG. This is terrible.
Norco.
Well, on a lighter note, we are on track to exceed both 3 and 4. So,
well, let's hope.
I have to agree with Jeff, because this is just craziness. And what really upsets me is each one of these cities is very, very unique. And what this does is basically it's trying to make us all the same. I totally get there needs to be affordable housing, but you're not going to build 162,103 houses. It's not going to happen. There's no, especially right now as the market begins to decline, and police, fire, all these things that you have to do, it's absolutely ridiculous. I think as cities, Banning has the right to be Banning, Riverside has the right to be Riverside, and the people who live there in Norco, we have the right to our horses, and people have the right to drive their streets. and they have the right to have enough police to cover. And right now, what they're doing is creating a perfect storm. How many of you are totally underwater with your unfunded liabilities? Which means in a very short amount of time, you will be paying pensions to people and have no cops on the street. So what you'll do is you'll build a bunch of houses and get one-time only fees, only you may not get it because they're going to tell you how much money you can get for your fee. And they're going to tell you, by the way, your municipal code, which some of you, Riverside's municipal code took them 100 years to create. Ours is 65 years old or 64, whatever it is. They're going to say, by the way, we're erasing that, and if you complain, it's NIMBY. So I don't know what to do about this. I'm happy about our numbers, but I got a hunch there's another shoe that's going to hit me in the side of the head. But this is absolute insanity. We have a right to be the unique cities we've all decided to lead. So anyway, is that a motion to get rid of SCAG? I'm just kidding, Jeff. Just kidding. Thank you.
Well, this is pretty obscene the way this thing came about, and what it ended up like. But we have San Jacinto that wants to speak as well.
I'm a little irritated, like pretty much everyone on the dais. Can you explain to me, what does regional housing needs assessment mean? What's the purpose behind it?
It is a state mandated process that's about 50 years old, and it's intended to induce the building of housing by requiring cities to plan for what is considered to be the future demand over an 8-year period.
And so somehow the people from LA are moving out to San Jacinto, Hemet, and all our cities here, and we're going to plan for them to come live in our neighborhoods because they don't want them? Pretty much?
I am simply sharing with you how it works.
Yeah, I wouldn't walk there either. I'm absolutely fuming. Option 4 is absolutely astronomically unfair to most of the people at the dais here. Look at the numbers between even San Jacinto, that's 4,000. That's absolutely ridiculous. Where are we going to set them?
Well, be thankful you don't have Hemet's numbers.
I know, I saw that, 12,000.
Jeez.
I mean, come on, that's a $8,000 difference nearly. It's absolutely ludicrous that we're expected to house them. We don't even have the jobs. Now, I assume, let's just assume that, let's say that they force us to do this. Are they going to provide us with the jobs?
No.
So what's the purpose behind it? Whose pocket is being lined on this one? Because you know that that's what this is down to. Somebody's taking money somewhere to do this. And the ones who are left to pick up the pieces are us, right here. It's absolutely beyond ridiculous. And I don't know what we have to do to fight this, but by God, we need to band together. This is ridiculous.
District 2.
As much as you'd like to get rid of SCAG, it's not, the option is not there. SCAG has been mandated with it, with the state of California, been doing it for 50 years. We've just never had a governor that wanted to step up and start penalizing us for all the cities. And so it's becoming so finite. The bottom line is somebody mentioned, I don't remember who it was, talked about the sprawl. And we are being spanked, if you want to call it that way, by Sacramento for our sprawl. They do not like Southern California sprawl. Part of that's the problem with some of our transportation. You know, everybody says Metrolink's too expensive, but you can't get a light rail to come from LA out to Riverside County, and that's the challenge that we face. And Rusty is exactly right that we need to do more pieces that implement that transportation and jobs so that we don't be forced to go have all of the people who live in our areas drive the distances. And this is why they're saying about our sprawl. So we need to focus on other things. But, you know, Rick, since you are our fearless leader, there's many organizations that are trying to fight this. Maybe Riverside County does need to. As I pointed out, option 2 had most of our cities, the majority of the cities covered. Option 4 had my city, so that's why I said I had that strange, where do I wear my hat? It really needs to look at those pieces that Rusty, and maybe we need to push back on it.
Okay. District 5.
my colleague, I know she doesn't believe it, but I was about ready to come back and pull back. I just had to get it out there, get rid of SCAG, because nobody's ever said that, I don't think. So we just need to, you got to float all these. If you're not, watch. Anyway, look, this comes from the state. These have been around for 50 years. They're ridiculous numbers. Okay, so we got to fight that. That's coming from there. I would say we give SCAG a few months to get their stuff squared away and not, try to push us. I'm getting mad at them because they're the arm of this right now, just like the county is the arm of so many state programs that we don't agree with. So at the end of the day, it enrages the heck out of me, because I think I dealt with this back when I was on the city council of Calamasa, and they came in there and they said these ridiculous numbers, and we pulled like 3 permits in the previous 3 years, and they're going, oh, you guys are supposed to have 700 permits next year. What? And so it's something that's so silly. Why is it even around? And it's for somebody to make them feel good. And let's hope this governor doesn't start taking it seriously, because as Karen pointed out, it has been kind of a wink, wink, nod, nod, don't worry about it. But we got to start talking like what we really want and what we need. So sorry about that, SCAG.
So what happens when your the majority of your city is affordable housing already? So, yeah.
Yeah, just
Rick?
a comment. I appreciate all the comments that I heard. And I think Mayor Bailey's right. If you do look at option 4, it is, quote, sprawl-inducing, which not only is counter to, SCAG's mission, but it's also counter to the state's mission in many ways to try to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by, putting more housing near transit. So, we also wanted to show this. I'm almost regretting that I asked you to put this on here, Chris, but
I actually, it was my idea. So,
but it's good to see it nonetheless. And you recall last month we had a discussion here at the executive committee, and we were directed to not, as a council of governments, take an action on any of the options. So we're sort of putting this out here, and I think this sort of confirms why, because there's vast differences in this. And as Supervisor Hewitt mentioned, in the past, these RHNA numbers have been not mandates. They're still not quite mandates, but there's a lot of concern. And I think, Mayor Bailey, you've been on the RHNA committee, that they are starting to get more teeth, and there will be some actions taken against jurisdictions that aren't able to meet these numbers. When in fact, as Supervisor Hewitt said, and many of you have said before, jurisdictions really have no role in building homes. It's done many other ways, and so that's somewhat difficult. I will say one more thing: as a council of governments, when you just look at all the options, it makes it difficult for us at the staff level to even weigh in on any of the options, because whether it's real or not, we are always thinking about what's best for our members, and these options show that there really isn't. As Chris said, there's not so bad and there's really bad, so it makes it difficult for us to even weigh in on this. I suspect that these numbers also, if they look this way for our jurisdictions, they must look this way for other subregions as well, and it'd be interesting. We'll probably want to query those other councils of governments and find out how their members are reacting to the options as well.
Well, and really, I want to thank you for having him post this, because it says exactly what it is, and we needed to all be aware of what these numbers were and how we're going to deal with them. So with that, I still have Riverside that would like to talk.
Just to comment on the SCAG meeting last week, and other representatives can do that now, I guess, or later during SCAG reports. But a disruptor was offered to us in this regard, in the form of a market-based solution like cap and trade for pollution credits. And it's a very interesting, simple concept. Somebody was upset because they didn't want to equate housing with pollution, but I think it's something that we could offer, or we could look at and potentially get behind as a potential solution for the state, ultimately, either for the state to set aside funding for each of those units towards subsidizing the infrastructure that's needed for them, or that cities could trade those units. For example, if Riverside wants to be more urbanized, then we could buy the 42 units from Norco and call it happy days. So there's a paper out on that. Did anybody bring that today from the SCAG meeting last week? But I'll get that to Rick to send out to you all. You might have it from the SCAG meeting as well, Chris. But I think that's at least a solution that should be looked at, especially by the state, and to get out of this, as you all have said, this insanity.
Well, with that, you want to go ahead and put up the item for vote, please? Oh, it's just receive and file. That's right. Thankfully, that's for sure. Okay, we go on to item number 6, reports and discussion. And I understand Aaron Sassy was not able to make it today. But please, in your folder, there's a number of bills that are hot bills that you need to pay attention to. So I ask that you do that. You don't have it? It's in your packet. It's not in your folder. It's in your packet. Okay, we'll go on to item 6B, presentation by Rachel Singer, providing information on public service fellowship.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, members of the committee. Rachel Singer, staff analyst at WRCOG, here to provide an update on the Public Service Fellowship Program. So the fellowship program first launched in 2016 with the goal to address what is commonly referred to as the brain drain, which is when university students have to leave the region to find work elsewhere. And since inception, the program has placed over 60 university students in member agencies, contributing over 55,000 hours of service throughout the region. Again, the program was created with the goal not only to retain local talent, but to create a pipeline between universities and the public sector to bolster our local workforce. I'd like to take a moment to do a fellow feature on Eduardo Cida. He was a round one fellow placed in the city of Paris, and upon completion of the program, he was hired on full-time by the city to continue his work on a variety of public health programs, including the Grow Paris initiative, which has recently been selected as a finalist for the Green Infrastructure Grant Program under the California Natural Resource Agency. This not only highlights the success of the city of Paris's initiative, but also the success and contribution of our fellowship program. So prior to the launch of the current fourth round of the program, the executive committee voted to update the program to extend longevity and increase our application pool. These updates have resulted in not only the continuation of the program, but also in our largest application pool for the current fourth round. Over 65 applications were received for the current fourth round of the program, which is the most we've ever received, and staff selected 13 fellows to participate in the fourth round of the program. Round 4 fellows are now 3 months into the program, and they've been invited to present at one of WRCOG's policy committee meetings to share about one of the projects that they've been assigned in the fellowship. So looking forward to the 5th round of the program, planning and preparation are underway with recruitment efforts, and at the September Technical Advisory Committee meeting, staff solicited volunteers to convene the Fellowship Ad Hoc Committee to continue to discuss future opportunities of the program. Representatives from the cities of Banning, Canyon Lake, Lake Elsinore, San Jacinto, and Eastern Municipal Water District are represented on the Ad Hoc Committee. With that, this is a receive and file item, and I'm happy to take any questions regarding the fellowship program.
Thank you, Rachel. Any committee members have any comments or questions about this program? District 5.
Yeah, I've got just one comment. I'd like to go ahead and again, really give a kudos to this program, because not only in the city of Calimesa has it been amazing, but just more recently with Thomas coming onto our staff and everything. The level and the caliber, talk about vetting and only get the best and the brightest. I've been super impressed with this, so thanks so much.
Thank you.
I think those that have had fellows in the past can agree to that statement as well. I know City of Hemet was really pleased with our fellow as well, so thank you.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for the program. Item 6C, presentation by Andrew Ruiz on WRCOG's CalPERS, unfunded accrued liability.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Andrew Ruiz, interim CFO with WRCOG, here to talk about our CalPERS unfunded liability. So earlier this year, Member Hewitt asked that we look into our unfunded liability and look into paying it down sooner, as RCTC recently took action on theirs to pay theirs off entirely. So we ran it through our Admin and Finance Committee a couple times, ran it through our finance directors, got direction from them, and eventually decided to go with opening up a Section 115 trust. So the present value of our current unfunded liability is about $3 million. We're about 76% funded, with the average being around 71%. And if we paid it out over the old payment schedule, as you see here, we pay out about $5.5 million. So these are the options that we looked at. We looked at making additional contributions to PERS, opening up a 115 trust, as I told you we ended up going with, or having a separate general fund investment account. So ultimately, we've decided to go with a 115 trust due to some of the advantages, which are the investments are significantly less restricted than the general fund investments. There's increased risk diversification through a different asset management firm, PERS versus PERS and PARS, so we decided to go with PARS on this one. We could potentially earn a greater yield over time than general fund investing or PERS investments, and these can be only used to make CalPERS contributions, so they could also be used as a rainy day fund in the event we're unable to make our regular CalPERS payments. So this is what our new payment schedule looks like. So in addition to making additional contributions from the 115 trust, we decided to go down to a 15-year term to realize some additional savings there. So as you can see at the bottom here, we expect to pay about $4.2 million versus the $5.5 million over the 25 years. So we'll save about $1.3 million for the agency on our unfunded liability. So some questions that were asked through our committees were, why not pay it directly to PERS? Or what if PARS doesn't make their investment earnings? So one reason we decided not to pay it directly to PERS is for diversification purposes, and historically PERS hasn't always made their investment earnings, hence the reason we have an unfunded liability. So this is kind of a visual of what we're trying to accomplish here by having our UAL in a separate investment pool. There's obvious overlap between the two investment pools in regards to where the monies are being invested, but there are two distinct areas where the
Can you talk a little slower?
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Thanks.
So again, there's two different investment pools here. There's our PARS investments, there's our PERS investments. So this is why we want to go with a PARS 115 trust for diversification purposes, because truly, even if you paid off your unfunded liability, it would never go away. Because if PERS doesn't hit their mark, they'll come back to a jurisdiction such as RCTC, who's paid theirs off, and they'll ask them for more monies if they don't hit their mark. And again, they don't always hit their mark. So this is a receive and file. As I said, we took action in our Admin and Finance Committee, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yep.
Any committee members have any questions or comments? Seeing none? Oh. Do we have one? District 5.
Oh, there you go. Hey, so, hey, first of all, Rick, thank you for getting Andrew going on this. Thank you, Andrew. You know, a great presentation. You know, this is a logical thing. Look at just by twisting a little thing around, we saved a cool 1.3 million or whatever. With that given, I would still like to see, I think what RCTC did was good, and there's other things. There's also symbolic things. You know, we've seen there's so many, these are going to get worse and worse as we go down this road. This is a tsunami that is not going to get small. And what happens is, too, I'd like to remind everybody that's a member here, if something were to happen, let's say we had some horrible lawsuits, you know, we saw a small lawsuit as regards to the PACE program or whatever, but something happened. If we're trying to keep up and paying this as we go, you know, then each jurisdiction is not held accountable, because a court just ruled that whatever we owe from WRCOG, a JPA, if they can't take care of it, it goes back, you know, proportionally to the members that are on here. So keep that in mind. I would have liked to have seen it go the way. I think you did a lot of hard. I don't have a problem with this. This is great. But remember this too, and boy, what you're saying about investment decisions is right on. We met, Karen and I had the honor to meet the new CEO of CalPERS, Marcia Frost, I think's her name. And she's quite an impressive individual. And she came down there and says, hey, we're not going to do any more divestiture. We're just, you know, we're going to make the best investments we can. And I really feel sorry for her, because her boss, the governor, just last week said, guess what? We're putting all of our investments into green now. Not maybe all, we're going to move those over toward that. Well, that's If green makes more money, fine. Go with what makes the most money. Don't do what's politically, progressively popular. So, you know, with that given, I don't have a problem with this. Thanks for the great work, and I think we're headed in the right direction.
Thank you.
I'm in. No? Oh,
You're not showing up.
I just
You're
turned my
in.
microphone on. I didn't push
That helps.
button. So, given the governor's recent foray into what he calls leveraging PERS, with this PARS investment, does that protect us as far as because it does, it turns into divestitures?
Yeah, so this is a separate investment pool, and the one thing with the PARS investment I didn't mention here is we can be aggressive, we can be conservative, we can pick how we want our investments in PARS to go, whereas with PERS, we give them the money, we let them kind of do
so
what they
it's
want.
not subjected to the governor's rate, I mean his, what do you call that?
No, this is
Yeah,
separate from that, yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing none? Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Item 6D, presentation by Chris Gray on the TUMP program.
So unlike my last presentation, this is all really good news. So there's nothing for anyone to dislike about this. So hopefully you haven't forgotten who I am in the last 15 minutes. But Chris Gray again, Director of Transportation and Planning. I'm here to give you an update on the TUMP program, which is one of our longstanding WRCOG programs. TUMP has been around since 2003, and it's a program that brings us all together and is responsible for building regional infrastructure through the collection of fees. I'm going to talk about TUMP revenues. Just a hint, it's good. I'm going to talk about zone revenues, mostly good. I'm going to talk about some key projects, yay, because there's some really great projects that are being built right now, and then also tell you about some efforts we're making to streamline the TUMP collection process. So in terms of revenue, we are having what we believe is last year was our second best year. In the history of the program, there was a year, I think it was 2006 or 2007, when we collected $150 million because residential projects were going like gangbusters. But this past year, we collected $63 million. And what's notable about this is we're seeing strong collections, not just in single family, but for industrial. We collected nearly $10 million in industrial fees, many of which for warehouses in the previous fiscal years. And we collected fees on almost 3,000 multifamily units. So it is one of our best years ever for multifamily. Single family continues to be strong. Retail and service make up the bulk. Service is basically office buildings make up the remainder of the collections. In terms of the Northwest Zone, which is Corona, Eastvale, Urupa Valley, Riverside, and the unincorporated portions of Riverside County, their collections are almost up $5 million. It's the zone. This zone has typically been one of the higher collecting zones. It's up about $5 million from the previous fiscal year. The Southwest Zone is down very small bit, not very much, but still at about $14 million. It's some of its highest collections in over a decade. The Central Zone has seen, after a couple years of revenues being flat, last 2 years have been pretty good. A lot of this is because of development that's occurring primarily in Menifee, Moreno Valley, March JPA, some of it in Paris, and then the unincorporated area is also doing well. Hemet San Jacinto is showing some sustained growth as well. After 3 years of roughly being flat, last 2 years, similar to some of the other zones, have done well. And then in particular, the Pass Zone has shown tremendous amounts of growth. Part of this is bringing Beaumont back into the program, so the action you took to settle our outstanding dispute with Beaumont and Beaumont's action to come back into the program has benefited. However, we are seeing development in Banning and Calamasa and the incorporated county as well. So the Pass has been very strong. So out of this growth that's occurring, generally speaking, that's growth across the board. There's a number of key projects. There's about, we would say, about 75 projects that are currently ongoing. Some of them are in a very early phase. Project may be doing planning documents or maybe doing the necessary design studies or getting their environmental clearances. Other projects are actively being worked on. We've just listed some of the projects. I'd like to call out the I-15 Cajalco, I-215 Scott Road, the French Valley Parkway, Railroad. There's work beginning on the Cherry Valley Boulevard interchange after an extended time of not doing any work. The Highland Springs, there's some activity moving forward on that. SR 60 Moreno Beach, and then the Hamner Avenue and Hamner Avenue Bridge are being processed as a single project in a collaborative partnership with the county, WRCOG, City of Eastvale, and City of Norco. So this is a picture of the I-15 Cajalco interchange. This actually is before they took down the bridge. If you have not, I strongly encourage you to go to the city's website. They have a time-lapse video of them taking the bridge down, which they did roughly in a day period. It is amazing what they are able to do now. The new bridge is open, and the project is nearly complete. We anticipate the project being complete roughly by the end of the year. And as I understand it, there will be a ribbon cutting coming up on that project soon. Another project for which this is a multi-agency partnership, so the City of Menifee and Riverside County are actively partnering on the Scott Road interchange. They've been making tremendous progress on that project as well. If you've driven through it or driven by it, it's amazing what $37 million will buy you. But it just shows that the value of the TUM program, because it's a leveraging program. It's a combination of funds from the city, funds from other fee programs, the TUMP program, as well as some state and federal money that RCTC arranged. So really, they say it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a state to build a road. But again, it's a great partnership, and we're looking forward to that project being complete. And then our final item is I'm going to talk a little bit about our online TUMP portal. You took action to allow cities to delegate to WRCOG the actual fee collection process. 16 out of the 20 agencies have done that. Right now what's happening is it's all done via email. So a developer goes to the city emails us, we email the city and the developer saying this is the fee, it gets paid, and we track all that through email correspondence. We've now completed work on an all-in-one TUMP portal, and the way this works is a developer and the city log in. They create a project that gets automatically sent to WRCOG. The fees are calculated automatically. The bill is then sent to the developer pays it online. So this is a way, for example, for a developer to pay via a credit card or pay via an electronic check. They still can pay physically. Some developers choose to do that. But what we have found is that there's a number of projects being done by small folks, smaller developers, maybe a single house at a time. So they may ask to pay via credit card, and it's only the $9,000 fee. So they're able to do that with our new portal. The portal is actively working now. I want to thank the City of Eastvale for allowing our staff to be the beta testers. And we are going to be showing this to our public works directors and our planning directors later this week. And we're going to be training staff on using the portal. And what's great about the portal is it also keeps track of as things happen. So we will oftentimes get developers like, hey, have you gotten the correspondence from city staff? Have they submitted the fee calculations? We have to dig through our emails, like, did we get the fee calculations? Now this all happens automatically. So developers are kept in the loop, city staff is kept in the loop, WRCOG is kept in the loop, and we're really excited to roll this out. This is a receive and file item, but we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Chris. Any comments or questions by the committee members? Seeing none. I know for us in Hemet, we're very thankful for this option. So thank you for implementing this. Okay, thank you. Item number 7, report from Technical Advisor Committee Chair, Chris.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few items. Just as there was robust discussion regarding RENA here, there was also robust discussion with the TAC. So many of the things that were brought up today were the same things that the city managers brought up during the TAC, particularly with respect to market conditions and the incentives for building to occur, especially when it comes to housing. Additionally, we did have a pretty good discussion regarding the Fellows program, and I think the unanimous feedback from the city managers was that it's just an outstanding program. So I think, as was conveyed here, it is a very great program that the city managers all do think very highly of. And then finally, due to the League of California Cities Conference, many of the members of the TAC will be gone, so we've went ahead and canceled the TAC for the next meeting. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Item 8, report from committee representatives. Are there any SCAG Regional Council or Policy Committee representatives who would like to give a summary of the meeting? Seeing none. Ben? do you have something from AQMD?
Sure. We had our AQMD meeting last week, and the bulk of the meeting was spent on the indirect source rule. This is a rule that the Air Board is looking at, both for mainly for inland or any warehousing. This is a rule that would affect warehouses, where warehouses would have to potentially have to do some sort of a calculation and see what trucks are coming into their facility, and on that have to do some mitigation. So it's a very controversial rule. We had a lot of comments on it on both sides of the aisle for a good couple hours at our meeting. And then we also had the Clean Air Awards after that. But if anyone has any questions on that rule, it also affects potentially, although at a much limited scale, ports as well as the airplanes or airports. So we'll see where this rule goes. And it's a very divisive rule, but we're getting through it.
Thank you. Brian, WRCOG update?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next quarterly meeting is November 15th. Nothing to report.
Did you say November 15th?
Yes.
Thank you. Rusty, SAPA and OWOW.
Nothing new to report.
Okay. Crystal on Sandag and
No, the
Borders
meeting was
Committee?
canceled, so nothing to report.
Okay. Item 9, Executive Director.
Thank you. Just a couple things to report. Go to the next slide, please. Here we go. First, wanted to mention that on October 16th, we mentioned this last month, where the annual Alt Car Conference and Expo is being held in Riverside. This is the first time it's ever been held in Riverside. I think for the 12 prior years, this conference has been held in Santa Monica. So it's a great opportunity for Riverside to showcase the many things in the leadership that is going on here, especially in the field of alternative vehicles and fueling stations. So make sure that you or have some staff attend this, and we think it's going to be a great event. We've heard in the past that over 1,000 people attend this, so it's a big conference. Next slide. Also wanted to mention we're now up to and over about 20 episodes of our podcast, and so you can see a lot of the titles there. And we pretty much tapped out on all the things that we do at WRCOG, so we're going to come looking for you guys. So don't be surprised if you get an email request where we can have you on a future show and talk about the things that are going on in your agency or jurisdiction. We think that would be absolutely fantastic, so be looking for emails from us. Next slide. Also wanted to mention tomorrow at the Box Theater in Riverside, WRCOG is hosting an Innovation in Government a seminar and workshop. Have a number of speakers talking about a number of issues that you talk about in your local jurisdictions and agencies as you look to plan for the future and try to stay ahead of the curve. We're fortunate to have Mayor Kelly Ciarto, our second vice chair, hosting the event. Thank you for doing that, Mayor, and hopefully you'll have staff be able to attend that event as well. And then lastly, we wanted to thank the jurisdictions that participated with us to celebrate or commemorate California Clean Air Day. We had 6 jurisdictions: Beaumont, Calamasa, Murrieta, Norco, Menifee, and Hemet all have tree planting ceremonies, and it was a beautiful day to do that, and it was a good time was had by all, and trees, of course, are contributors to the environment and the benefits that they bring. So it was a good day to see folks out there supplementing our urban forest program and in commemoration of California Clean Air Day. So, Madam Chair, that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Item 10, items for future agendas. Anyone have any future agenda items that they'd like to add to the list?
One more thing.
Oh.
One more thing I wanted to add. I wanted to introduce Natalie Acrata. She's our new intern. I introduced her last month, but she left early because she had better things to do. But she's here today, so we appreciate her, and she's working with us. And she's actually compiled a lot of these regional housing needs assessment numbers and is staying on task on that.
Welcome, Natalie. Item 11, general announcements. Menifee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to publicly thank Casey Daly for coming out to the City of Menifee and meeting with me and our Economic Development Director. We learned a lot about CPACE and a whole host of other tools that he has in his toolbox that we're going to be exploring in our city. So again, Casey, thank you. And then I wanted to extend my thanks to Mayor Bailey for holding the line with the SCAG information. Despite what's best for your city, you're still doing what's best for the group, so I appreciate it.
Okay, Urupa Valley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to let you know that we have made a selection on our new city manager. As most of you know, we've been without Gary Thompson for several months now, and he went to out in Riverside for Yeah, thank you, LAFCO. And so we will finalize that hopefully today, and at a special meeting coming this week, we'll look at a package for that person. We had 3 finalists, and interestingly enough, the city staff that interviewed the 3 last week, every one of the staff members came up with one person as the #1 selection, as did the city council. And we just saw this one person as being the perfect match for our city. So as soon as I'll let Rick know as soon as we get a new city manager.
Thank you. Marietta.
So we had a vacancy on our council that was left when that one guy left to go to D.C. No, Randon left to go to D.C., Randon Lane. So last Tuesday we took action on the council to appoint a substitute for him, and that person will be Gene Wunderlich. Gene has served on our council before in a substitute fashion for about 6 months. So we're going to welcome him back. He has got a lot of information and a lot of know-how on housing. So that's a fortunate aspect for us. But anyway, so you may see Gene popping around here and there in the county, and when you see him now, he's part of the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, you're very lucky to have him. Yeah. Item 12, items for closed session.
Yeah, so we have personnel matters for closed session. We're going to ask anybody who's not involved in the closed session to leave the room, and for the board, we'll ask the board to come down into the audience.
Thank you. Would you report out of closed session?
We actually need to take an action. It's item 13.
Yes.
We are going to, the board is going to discuss and potentially approve an amendment to the executive director's contract, extending the term for 1 year until September 16th, 2022. So do we have a motion and a second?
Okay. We're going to do a motion and have a motion and a second. On that is
motion to approve.
Any more discussion? Please vote.
There's nothing to vote on, Madam Chair.
Can't vote.
It's verbal.
Verbal.
Nope.
Oh, wait a minute. Did we have Riverside that wanted to talk?
Yeah, I think that'd be good for the executive director just to tell us a little bit about his other position that he's embarking on and how we can help him with that.
Good idea.
Yeah, oh, sure, thank you. No, thank you for the opportunity. We had this discussion with the admin committee. I was asked several months ago, actually, by the dean of the School of Public Policy at UCR and by the current director of what is now called the Center for Sustainable Suburban Development, which has been in place for a number of years, and that's a tongue twister of a name. But they both asked me if I would consider becoming their executive director for a newly constituted group that is being renamed the Inland Center for Sustainable Development. And the idea behind the center is they are looking for someone who can help guide it in this first year. It has a number of members from both the public and private sector that are funding the entity. And the idea is that every year or so, the funders would select a topic that they think is important to the region, both Riverside and San Bernardino counties. This year, it's probably no surprise that topic is housing. And so the idea is they were looking for an external director who could help coordinate the center in this first year. It will be very heavy on academic research. They've hired a staff and they'll have a number of professors also working on the topic, and we've developed an outline. I think some of you in this room may be contributors during this first year. Initially, they wanted it to be more time than I thought would be fruitful to do. I told them that I would do it if the number of hours for me during this first year were commensurate with the number of hours if I were to take like an adjunct faculty position. So we're really looking at somewhere around 6 hours or so per week. I also told them that if that burden becomes heavier than that, that I'll be sure to bring it up with the admin committee and we'll work out different arrangements. So they were agreeable to that. So I think in this first year, and I think we're going to try to get things started this next month with the initial meeting. I think that the benefit here is that this will provide some really good objective research from the center to WRCOG and the other councils of governments in the region, and hopefully we can use any policy recommendations that come out of this research, work with area legislators, and it might go to areas such as the regional housing needs assessment that we just talked about. So I'm excited about the opportunity. I think there's some synergies that exist in my position here at WRCOG, and my hope is that the outcomes and the products that come from the center will be useful to all of you.
Move approval.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved unanimously. Okay, and with that, I'd like to thank Rick for the many accomplishments that you had again this previous year, as you always do, and how much we appreciate your leadership for the COG, and look forward to the additional year as well with your on your contract. Thank you. Riverside again? Nope. Corona? Nope. With that?
Move to adjourn. Yeah.
Kelly? No. All right. Well, the bells are ringing. With that, we'll adjourn to our next meeting scheduled for Monday, November 4th at 2 p.m. We are adjourned.